Hello everyone, Namaskar. In today's video, we'll cover a big topic, which is how do you start UPSC preparation from zero. In this, we're going to be covering almost everything that you require in order to give a good attempt at Civil Services exam. And since this is going to be a long video, obviously it makes sense to have an index to what are the things that we are going to be talking about. So first and foremost, we'll be understanding the game. Okay, Civil Services exam preparation is basically a game. If you learn to play the game, you improve your score. It's as simple as that. But if you don't understand the game, then you keep making efforts, you keep getting frustrated, and then it doesn't work out. So having an understanding of the game and where do we want to go from there, what is the end game, it's important to understand. So once we have understood the game and the end game, then we'll come to exam pattern and syllabus. एग्जाम पैटर्न क्या है, प्रीलिम्स में किस तरीके के क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, मेंस में कैसे क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, व्हाट इज द लेवल ऑफ दोज क्वेश्चंस, all of this we'll understand over here. Then we'll talk about sources, then a little bit of do's and don'ts I'll share with you. How do you maintain consistency, and what are the most common causes of failure and success in this exam. Finally, we'll also talk about some other incidentals. Other incidentals mean how do you start answer writing, when do you start answer writing, what do you do about current affairs, how do you revise. So all of these things we will talk about in today's session, so buckle up, it's going to be a long one. Now, first and foremost, how many of you watching this video at one point or the other in the last 1 year have thought this, that I wish I could wake up one day and be an IAS officer, or it could be IPS, it could be IFS, or whatever service of your choice. If you have thought that, so there is, like, obviously everybody thinks about it. I thought about it when I was preparing, but what I've realized over time, over the course of my 6 attempts, where I got selected twice, over the course of guiding a number of people to become IAS IPS officers, what I've realized is this is essentially this, that you are expecting somebody to give you a fish. And that creates a long-term fear. Why? Because I don't know how to get that fish for myself. And if I don't know how to get that fish for myself, I'll always be afraid. Why? Because somebody can take that fish away from me. On the other hand, if you learn fishing, so if not civil services exam, some other exam, something else, you will figure out for yourself. Why? Because you know how to do it. So it's very important for you to understand how do you do something, rather than just कि भाई मेरे को बस बता दो क्या करना है और मैं कर लूंगा. नहीं, you also have to understand the process of how it works, because sooner or later you will face a roadblock, and in order to clear those roadblocks, you have to understand how the game works. Now, for those of you that are interested, the UPSC Essential course, where we teach you how to think about this exam, we give you the right steps in order to conquer the fear, and not just the fear, but also lack of conceptual understanding. All of these things we help you deal with directly. Now, this is a course where you get access to live classes and recordings for 3 years, mentorship for 3 years. Abhishek Chauhan, who was one of our students from UPSC Essential in 2023, he joined in the month of July of 2023. So कायदे से, even right now, he would have access to mentorship from that course itself. Why is that the idea? Because we understand कि everybody wants to clear in their first attempt, but practically speaking, second या third attempt में जाके most लोगों का selection हो रहा होता है. Right? There is a pre-launch discount going on this course at the moment. And for those of you that are interested, you can visit courses.upscprep.com to know more about this. Now, moving on. A number of people ask me how much answer writing should I do? So for them, I have an image. This is a reference image. This is from AIR 1, Kanishk Kataria from 2019. So if you will, pause the video here and take a moment to calculate कि कितना ये, there are easily 50 to 60 refills over here. One refill is essentially equivalent to one full paper. 3 घंटे का पेपर अगर आप लिखते हो तो एक refill आपकी खत्म होती है. This he has done in 2.5 months. 60 papers in 75 days. This is how much you have to write. if you want ki bhai, now Kanish Kataria was somebody who got rank 1 in his first attempt. So then a lot of people want this, but not a lot of people are willing to do this. They are like, give me the shortcut. How much is the minimum effort that I can put so I can get the result? If you're not willing to put in this effort, you should probably give up on this. This is where I want you to understand this very simple thing, that you either thicken your skin or you lower your ambitions. Both of those things cannot happen at the same time. You cannot expect that I will be top among everybody in India in a very competitive exam and I'm not going to put in the effort either. No. अब effort डालोगे तो you will also face failure. Effort डालोगे तो लोग सवाल भी उठाएंगे. People will say कि अरे तुमसे तो हो नहीं रहा, तुम्हारे बस की थोड़ी है, तुम थोड़ी कर सकते हो. They'll ask questions, they'll raise doubts कि भाई you'll clear civil services. Those things will be there. But if you have the ambition कि no, I want to do it, you have to thicken your skin. You cannot be, कि somebody said कि bhai, how will you do it? And therefore I was sad for the next 5 days and I could not study. If that is the case, I can tell you right now, it's going to be very difficult to clear civil services exam. But if you have thick skin, you don't care what those people say. In fact, what those people say motivates you to work harder. You will probably achieve your ambition. It's as simple as that. So, that out of the way, let's talk about the end game. Now, whenever you're playing chess mein, there is a very simple rule that in order to get good at the game of chess, you need to start with the end game. You need to know how the game finishes in order to then understand ki, okay, what are the different parts of the game, stages of the game. So, in order to understand the civil services ka game, we will also start with the end game. What is the end game? This. Now, these are mark sheets AIR 1 2017 and this is also AIR 1 2023. Anudeep Durishetty was somebody who got selected in his 5th attempt. Aditya Srivastava, I think this was his 3rd or 4th attempt. Kanish Kataria, we've already seen 1st attempt. Now, if I look at the totals, very different totals, 1126 and 1099. और अगर मैं differences देखूं, essay paper में he has secured 117, 155. Personality test में 200, 176. Optional में 310 plus and he has secured 300 plus. So both of them have got good marks, but none of them have the exact same marks कि नहीं मेरे को इस पेपर में इतना चाहिए, only then I will clear and this and that. There can be a wide variation in mains. But the one thing that you have to very clearly understand is that mains is what makes or breaks the game. Interview is ensuring कि okay, whether you are rank 1 or maybe rank 300, but whether you are getting a rank or not is determined by these 7 papers. So this is something that you have to understand about this entire process. A lot of people get stuck on the prelims stage of the exam. कि prelims निकालना है, prelims निकालना है. Prelims is nothing. This is the game. If you can win this, everything else works out. Now, the problem with that is कि I've given you like 7 papers, and in those 7 papers there are multiple subjects. There are like history, polity, geography, economy, environment, science and tech, ethics, society, international relations, a lot of things that need to be covered. And not just that, अब उसको like prelims के लिए भी करना है. It's not like you don't want to prepare for prelims. Prelims के साथ साथ CSAT के बाद, you also have to prepare, then mains, then you have to prepare optional. You have to also spend a lot of time with previous year questions. You also have to spend time making notes, understanding exam patterns, having a growth mindset. Okay, maybe I don't understand this right now, but I will eventually understand this. You have to have that faith. Then you have to build consistency, because it can't be like this is not one of those exams जो exam से एक दिन पहले पढ़ाई करके, because you've been there, I've been there in college or in school, wherever. मतलब in school I used to be a great all-round student, but in college I was loafer number 1. And in college, I used to be like, acha, exam tomorrow at 8 a.m. I will start studying at 6 p.m. the previous night. If you have that attitude, you will not make it through civil services exam. That will have to change. Building that mental, emotional and physical strength and resilience and momentum. And sometimes that momentum will break regardless, because you'll fall sick, there'll be an emergency. So how do you restart that? On top of that, कि भाई बेस्ट सोर्सेस क्या हैं ये समझना है. उसके बाद भी कि भाई पैटर्न रिकग्निशन के अलावा बेस्ट स्ट्रेटजी क्या है, बिकॉज नाउ 26 का पेपर हैज कम आउट. So what has changed? How do you prepare for this new stage of the exam, new pattern of the exam? Some things you leave it to God, right? On top of all of this, a big factor in civil services exam is time. Ki regardless of all of these things that you have to do, there will be a lot of time spent. So having understood ki bhai end game kya hai, we've seen the problem. Let's look at some basic rules for the game. The game of civil services exam is that it is going to be absolutely boring. If you don't enjoy studies, it's going to be very hard. So you have to figure out a way to make studies enjoyable. If you don't enjoy a subject, figure out how to make it enjoyable, because if you are just frustrated the entire day studying the different subjects, you are going to quit very soon. दूसरा, as compared to social media, reels, shorts, all of that short form content which is just like dopamine का overload कर लिया अपन ने, and I am through the roof, brain rot, done. If that is the case with you, this is going to be very, very hard, because your brain is going to crave that dopamine. Your brain is going to crave that कि भाई नहीं, मतलब get me out of here. Like get me to that reels and scrolling and all that. So if you can do this in an age of distraction, in the age of social media, I can say right now you will find success. But this doing the boring thing when everybody else is out there enjoying themselves, having fun, going to parties, this is going to be the hardest thing that you do. If you can do the hard thing, and the hard thing is not कि I have to be physically, I have to push something physical hard hai. It's also going to be mentally hard. Why? Because you have to constantly tell yourself, don't be distracted. There will be opportunities for you to get distracted. Rule number 2, it will take more time than you think. All of us want to clear in our first attempt, but nobody actually wants to give all 6 attempts, right? When I want to clear in my first attempt, there are some practical difficulties. Like for example, we took the case of Kanish Kataria. Kanish Kataria cleared in his first attempt with 1 year of preparation before the exam. Does that mean that anybody and everybody can do it? Not necessarily. Why? Because Kanish Kataria ka English skills were already pretty good. He did not have to work on his English. Kanish Kataria had already gotten some practice with good writing. Why? Because he was already in a job, so he was already writing mails and memos and all of those sorts of things. So he already had some practice in some areas. If you require practice in even those areas, like for example, if you're just starting preparation and you don't have good English, you want to give this exam in English medium, so therefore you might require more time. And that is the important bit, that you have to understand your limitations. Don't be fixated on no, I have to clear it this time, otherwise the world will end. The world will end if that is the case with you, and you will get frustrated, and then you will get oh my god, it's so unfair, this, that, XYZ. No, stay focused on the process, stay focused on putting in the hard work, and the result will take care of itself. Ye apna Bhagavad Gita ka jo biggest lesson, this is what it is. Finally, you will fail a lot. Now, this word is a bit of a problem. Why? Because when we think of this word, we are reminded of school. You make some small mistake and you are a failure. You have not failed, you are a failure. So you have to start thinking in a new manner. Anytime I am not failing, I am making a mistake. And mistakes I can learn from. If I've made a mistake, and I will make a lot of mistakes because I will learn a lot of things. All that I want to focus on is that I don't repeat the same mistakes again and again, because if I'm doing that, then I'm wasting a lot of time. So don't consider yourself a failure just because you could not score well in an exam. That is data. Use that data from those mistakes to learn and improve. So this is the civil services ka game. If you can understand these three things, you will find success. It's as simple as that. Now, इसमें अब एक और चीज आती है that a lot of people feel that do I need to be a genius in order to clear civil services exam? I've talked about Kanishk Kataria, मतलब Anudeep Durishetty, मतलब these are all people who spent time and effort, रगड़ा मारा, सब कुछ किया, but again they had some good qualities also. So do you actually need to be कि भाई only people from best colleges, SRCC, Stephens, IITs, only those people are clearing civil services? Not necessarily. In fact, I would say that if you are a genius and if you're preparing for civil services exam, you are wasting your talent. You should not be here. On the other end, you can't be कि भाई अगर average IQ is 100, so then I have below average IQ and then I'm trying. You have to be slightly smart. You have to be slightly above average. 110 to 115 अगर आप यहाँ पे हो, you're good to go. You don't need to be a genius, but you still slightly smarter than average because दिमाग लगाना है. This is an exam which is testing for people who want, like, who the government wants to run, the higher civil services. IAS, IPS आप बनोगे, मतलब you will be running districts, you'll be running like huge organizations. So then a certain amount of brain power is required. Not a lot, but a certain amount is required. So इसके लिए भी please keep in mind that even if you feel that you are here, if you consider yourself that I am an average student, so then therefore it is not possible for me. Please keep in mind, IQ is something that can be improved with practice. IQ is not fixed. IQ is not static. Nothing in life is static. If you put in the effort, you can improve these things. Which brings us to how do you improve these things, right? Upskilling is the concept that, okay, I don't know what the problem is and like how do I improve on there. So anytime that you're thinking about any skill, there are 4 stages that you will go through. Right? Stage 1 is where I'm not even aware कि भाई I have some skill issue. Right? I'm thinking कि I'm giving some IQ test or I'm giving some subject ka test and I'm not scoring well. You are not scoring well because you don't know the subject. And like if you don't know the subject, naturally you will not score well. But how do I learn the subject? I don't even know that. This is when I'm absolute zero. I don't know anything ki bhai, what is the problem also in my paper. This is level 1. Level 2 is ki okay, now I've studied the subject a little bit, but I'm still not getting a good score. But at least now I know ki acha, ye wala jo question tha na, this was in that chapter. I forgot while I was giving the test, but I know where it is, and if I revise that chapter, I should be able to do it. This is level 2. Conscious incompetence, that I am aware of the fact that there are mistakes that I'm still making, but I know how to correct them. Number 3 and 4 is where you actually stand a chance to clear CSE, Civil Services Exam. At 1 and 2, you are not clearing any competitive exam. At 3 and 4, you are possibly clearing the exam. At 4, you're definitely clearing. At 3 also, you have some chances. 3 kya hai? 3 is that when I am 100% focused, when I'm in the zone, I score well in tests. But sometimes I get distracted and then sometimes I still don't score so well. That's stage 3, that when I'm consciously focused on that particular skill, I have to write a good answer. These are the things that I should do here, this, that. I generally produce a good output. Level 4 is even when I'm not 100% there, even when I'm functioning at 80-90%, I will still produce an above average answer. I will still get above average marks no matter what test you give me. Why? Because I've studied so much, I've put in so much effort that it has become second nature. Just using my pen, something good will come out in general, right? Level 3 and 4 is where you clear civil services exam. But why am I talking about this? Because this is a process that you can follow for any skill. Be it for answer writing, be it for previous year question analysis, be it for, MCQs, be it for any other skill in any other area. You want to become better at cricket, the same process follows. Every step, everywhere will be the same. This is why I said कि भाई, even if you feel कि भाई, I am an average student, you can become above average. All that you have to do is follow those 4 steps. Which brings us to levels of knowledge. Now, levels of knowledge, why am I talking about this? Because we have to be clear on this very basic thing that all knowledge is not equal. These 3 levels are very relevant for prelims, and these 3 levels are very relevant for mains. This level is not relevant at all for civil services exam. This level is relevant if you're doing a PhD or if you're a research scholar and so on. We are not creating new knowledge in this exam, but we need to be able to work through all of these 5 aspects for the course of this exam. So let me explain what these stages mean. Now, for those that are interested in knowing more about this is something called Bloom's taxonomy. Right? Bloom's taxonomy of knowledge. Number 1, क्या है? Remember. Remember का क्या मतलब है? That you know that you have studied somewhere that Tropic of Cancer passes 23.5 degree north. You know Tropic of Capricorn passes 23.5 degree south. This is a fact that I remember. But what is the meaning of that fact? What is the understanding of that fact? That 23.5 degree north and 23.5 degree south, this is where the sun ranges. 23.5 degree north is the highest point where direct sunlight reaches during summer in the northern hemisphere, and 23.5 south is where direct sunlight reaches during summer in the southern hemisphere. Right? This is the understanding of Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Application अगर बात करें, application में क्या हो रहा है? Now I'm taking this concept. Highest point of direct sunlight, 23.5 degree north, right? It will happen at a certain date, which will be summer solstice. On that date, there are some places on the earth which are getting more sunlight. Can I figure this out based on this concept? This is application of the concept. इसमें क्या किया है हमने? इसमें उसी concept को हम लेके एक step आगे चले गए हैं. This is something that a lot of questions come up in prelims a lot of the time. But इस साल 26 की अगर हम बात करें तो there were a lot of questions over here. Now, इन 3 levels का एक example देख लेते हैं. Question number 29. This is from prelims 2022. Right. This is, you can very clearly identify level 1 of knowledge. Basic question, absolute straight. कि भैया northern hemisphere longest day of the year normally occurs. Let me know in the comments what you think is the answer over here. Question number 15 from 2024. Now this is a level 3 question, meaning this is application based. Concept वही है. Longest day क्या है? 21 June. चलो आंसर पता चल गया. So 21 June every year, which latitudes experience sunlight of more than 12 hours? So now I have to understand के ऊपर go one step ahead and apply the knowledge that I just learned. If you can do this, you will generally do well in the prelim stage of the exam. Which brings us back to level 4 and 5. Now, level 4 and 5, these are things where we are deep diving, where we are figuring out कि भाई whether what we know is correct or not. और level 4 का एक बहुत simple सा example ले लो. If there are multiple concepts involved in a single question, so that is a level 4 question. As simple as that. जब भी मैं पूछूंगा कि भाई अच्छा what is the impact of increasing temperature of the earth on sea surface and how is this impacting the island nations of the world. So this is a question which is analysis. कि there are multiple moving parts and how are those parts interacting with each other. Level 4 के questions a lot of the times you will get in mains. Mains में level 3 से नीचे question नहीं आते. Very rarely will you be asked questions कि भाई अच्छा ये बता दो सीधा सीधा. मेंस में सीधा क्वेश्चन नहीं आता. मेंस में इधर या इधर आता है. इवैल्यूएशन पे क्वेश्चन क्या आता है? इवैल्यूएशन पे क्वेश्चन विल बी समथिंग लाइक कि लेट्स से यू नो दैट पार्लियामेंट, एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड जुडिशरी, these are the 3 arms of the government, right? Legislature is where the laws are made. Executive is implementing those laws. Judiciary is checking कि भाई are the laws made correct and is the implementation correct, and इन दोनों को इस पे चेक रखना होता है. तो इवैल्यूएशन का क्वेश्चन आएगा कि भाई जुडिशरी को अब चेक रख ही नहीं पाते with the legislative and the executive. Why? Because the executive cannot appoint the judiciary. Judiciary appoints itself, and the क्या बोलते हैं, executive is not appointing judiciary, and legislative पे जब तक बात आती है, recently you might have seen that there was that high court judge जिसके घर पे मतलब घर जल गया था, and then there was cash found, and before they could try that for discussion in parliament, the judge quit. So like, is there even an effective check left on the judiciary? This is a question of evaluation, right? Multiple concepts, but it is talking about कि एक सिस्टम बनाया था checks and balances का, क्या वो सिस्टम अभी भी काम कर रहा है? Very frequently you get questions like this in mains. Now let me give you some examples from mains ka questions. Like for example, very simple question, geography ka. I teach geography, so therefore there is always the geography ka examples will be a lot more. What is sea surface temperature rise? How does it affect the formation of tropical cyclones? So multiple concepts in a single question. At least level 3 या 4 का अपना question यहाँ पे आ गया है. And this is as straightforward a question that you get in mains. Further questions in mains you will see are more and more complicated. Right. So by this point, I think we are already about 25 minutes into this video. Right. And you might be feeling a little stressed. If that is the case, okay, fine. But you also have to understand that you should be a little stressed, but you should not be very stressed. There is an ideal zone of stress. This is a concept from sports science in which you need to understand that if an athlete who is competing in an event, if he is not engaged enough, if he is not stressed at all, that person will be very, very bored. Think of it in the sense कि भाई जब छोटे बच्चे खेलते हैं कोई game and then you don't play those games, right? You play a lot more complicated games for no reason. I think kids games are super fun, but why don't we often play kids games? Because we feel they are too easy, and because they are too easy, I am not engaged, right? I know that I can win whenever I want. For that reason, I am bored. On the other hand, if I ask you कि भाई कल जाके आपको IPL में you have to play for this team, and you will be stressed. If you've not played cricket at that level before, you will be very, very stressed because you don't want to disappoint people. You don't want to disappoint your teammates, and you got that chance. You obviously want to make the most of it. So all of those things will now start playing in your head. And because you don't have the skills to do justice to that, you will be burnt out. By the time that you get to that match, you will not have slept the entire night because you're like, bhai kaise karenge, kya karenge, kya hoga? They're throwing balls at 140, 150 km per hour. How am I even going to face that? I don't want to get bowled out on a duck. My friends will make fun of me. All of these things will go in your head, and you will be burnt out before you ever get to that pitch. Now, what is the idea? Ki I want to try things over here in the middle, where I am pushed slightly beyond my comfort zone, and I am not yet so far out of my comfort zone that I am constantly stressed, right? We talked about the game of Civil Services Exam. So this is the complete arc of the Civil Services Exam game. It is still a game. Don't make it so easy कि भाई मैं सिर्फ और सिर्फ I will just do the easy things. You will not be engaged. Don't make it so hard कि नहीं day one से I'm going to study 5 subjects in a day. Day one से I'm going to do this. I'm going to make notes. You try and do everything at once and you will be burnt out. Start slowly. Increase the difficulty one step at a time and you will find optimal performance. Please keep this in mind, right? This is something that will apply to your entire journey, because this is also something that we, ingrain into our course. Ki it should not be extremely difficult all at once. You should not be, facing mains level difficulty when you don't even know the concept. If I don't know, if I am over here, I don't even know the fact. How am I supposed to analyze and evaluate it? You cannot. So therefore, the idea is build slowly, slightly out of your comfort zone. अब comfort zone के out क्या भी हो सकता है? It can be कि भाई okay, I'm not used to studying for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours in a day. I start pushing on that. Slowly and slowly, you'll start pushing in other areas. Always try to be at the edge of your ability. That is where most growth happens. Right. Which brings us to the exam pattern. I hope you have understood the game of civil services. We looked at the end game. A lot of things to be done, but it is not that you have to do all of them at once. You have to do them serially, one after the other. Take one, get a little good at it, move to the next, get a little good at it. 6, 7 subjects, you have done a little good. Then you come back to them all over again and then get slightly better at each of them at the same, serial order. This makes it easier for you to, not just review the subjects again, but also not be constantly stressed कि भी कैसे होगा. I am not supposed to do a PhD, but I am supposed to play the game well. Now, coming to the pattern of the exam, सबसे पहले बात करते हैं about age limits, because this is the most frequent question that I get. Even right now, there are videos where there'll be comments ki, okay, this is my date of birth, am I eligible or not? I'm going to give you a very simple test. 1st of August is the reference date. Let us, you should be above 21, right? And below 32. These are the age limits. अब इसका मतलब क्या है? Let us say that you are on 1st of August. 1st of August reference date जो अपना है in 2027. Your age is exactly 21 years. Exactly 21 years. You will be eligible. It is 21 years plus 1 day. Right? Meaning आपका जन्मदिन कब आया था? 31st of July of 2027. So then exactly 21 years plus 1 day, also eligible. If you are 20 years and 365 days, you are not eligible. That. Now, इसमें a lot of people get confused about कि भाई, let's say your birthday is on the 1st of August. तो 1st of August 2027 पे, if you are exactly 32, you are eligible. But if you are 32 and 75 days, my birthday is somewhere in the month of July, June and middle of May. My birthday is somewhere in the middle of May and I will be 32 years and some days. You are not eligible. You should be less than or equal to 32, greater than or equal to 21 on the 1st of August in the year that you want to give the exam. If you want to do that in 28, this same thing applies in 28. I hope that makes it absolutely clear. Moving on, number of attempts की बात कर लेते हैं. General category के लिए you get 6 attempts, right? OBC you get 9, SC ST you get more, right? अब कितने मिलते हैं, like it doesn't make a difference. You get more attempts, but at the same time I would highly recommend that you should not be concerned about these numbers. Why? Because think about it in the sense कि if you are giving all 6 attempts, let's say you started giving attempts at the age of 22 years, you gave all 6 attempts, बीच में एक आध ब्रेक भी ले लिया 1 साल कि भाई ठीक है, फ्रस्ट्रेट हो गए हैं, कुछ और करते हैं, नया करते हैं, या आपको लगा you were not ready and all. तो 6 attempts will take 7 to 8 years, and by the time that you are out of this, you are already 30 years old. This is the simple reason why I don't think anybody should give 6 attempts. And this is coming from somebody who has given 6 attempts. So therefore, the idea is simple, that if after 2 to 3 attempts, you are not able to clear prelims, you are not able to make sense of what is the problem, you should really think about leaving this and doing something else. Maybe you want to try a different exam, maybe you want to try state PCS, maybe you want to try RBI grade B or SSC or whatever, you want to do a private service somewhere. Once things make sense, what went wrong, till the time you don't understand what went wrong in prelims, and if you keep giving prelims again, you will keep failing again. So therefore, I don't think it is a good idea that anybody should consider giving 6 attempts. Not a great idea. 2 to 3 attempts, I would recommend. If you want to give at least 2 to 3 attempts. But after 2 attempts, if you have not cleared prelims, you should really consider कि should I give another attempt? There should be a very strong reason for why I am trying the third attempt. And if even there you don't make any progress, or let us say, okay, you give mains, maybe I can think about another attempt, but you have not made progress then also, it's a very good idea to exit. You should always have an exit plan for the civil services exam journey, because attempts का ये जो discussion होता है ना, there is a lot of hoo halla around this, that OBC are getting so many attempts, SC are getting so many attempts. I think that's a useless discussion, for the simple reason that you should not be thinking about giving all those attempts, because this is your prime years of your life. You will never be 20-year-old again. And the amount of energy and enthusiasm that you have as a 20-year-old, you don't get that back. I am now nearing 35. I know that there is a very clear difference in the energy that I had when I was 25 versus now. So like, it doesn't hit you then, but then you do realize this. So attempts का discussion ये है. Now, attempt में एक और important चीज है, which is how is an attempt counted. तो prelims में GS1, GS2 के 2 papers रहते हैं. If your attendance is marked in any one of these papers, in any one, meaning you went for GS1, attendance got marked, you skipped GS2, attempt is counted. You filled the form, you showed up at the exam center, but you did not go in and you did not mark your attendance, attempt is not counted. आपने biometric attendance भी दे दिया, सब कुछ biometric attendance दे दिया, तो then again attendance दे दिया, but लाइन में लग गए, ये हो गया, जब तक attendance mark नहीं होता, attempt is not counted. Please keep that in mind. Right? अब there is, I don't think, a case of कि somebody did not mark an attendance over here and mark an attendance over here, because what is that person doing? I don't get. But still, attempt will be counted. Now, plan of exam की बात करते हैं. Plan of exam में what you have to understand is, according to UPSC, it is made up of 2 stages. Civil services exam is made up of 2 stages. The preliminary, which is known as prelims, and the main exam, which is known as the written part of the main exam is what is known as mains. And the interview is also part of the main exam only. So according to UPSC, there is only preliminary and main, but in general, the written part of the main exam is what is known as mains, right? This is where you're writing those 7 papers, 7 ke alawa you're writing 2 more papers, and then you go to the interview. Now, if we want to understand the stages of the exam, we also have to understand what is the syllabus, what are the sources, and let's go into that a little bit more detail. सबसे पहले बात करते हैं prelims के पैटर्न की. Now, prelims में GS and CSAT. This is known as paper 1 and paper 2. तो paper 1 and paper 2 में number of questions कितने हैं? सबसे पहले GS में you get 100 questions, CSAT में you get 80 questions. Marks +2, -2 by 3, right? Plus 2.5, negative of 2.5 by 3, which is negative 0.87, right? तो ये फॉर्मूला अपना सिंपल है. मार्क्स का 1/3 नेगेटिव होगा. जितने मार्क्स मिलते अगर सही होता तो 1/3 of that is the negative marking. Now, GS1 is marking, माने कि GS1 के मार्क्स से आपका कट ऑफ डिक्लेयर होता है. CSAT is qualifying, meaning in CSAT I only need to get 67 marks. I only need to get 67 marks and I have cleared it. I don't need to get a score in CSAT. If you score 150, if you score 68, it is the same thing. After that, GS1 mein how much you're scoring, that makes a lot of difference. So over here, a lot of people make the mistake of okay, I only have to score 67 marks, which is 33.33%. 67 is rounded up so that you don't make that mistake. A lot of people take this lightly, only 33% marks are required. CSAT ka level is also increasing in the last couple of years. मतलब the paper gets more lengthy, it takes time to solve it, and in such a case, if you're not practiced enough, if you don't feel confident and comfortable, you also have to spend some time working on it. Like for example, even this year, I know so many people who scored 90 plus marks in GS1. It was a very tough GS paper and 50 marks in CSAT. क्यों भाई? मतलब जब इतनी मेहनत करी थी that you were scoring so well in GS, you should have also worked hard over here. But again, this is one of the mistakes that people end up making. Now, टाइमिंग क्या रहेगी इनकी? GS1 का टाइम अपना रहता है 9:30 AM, 9:30 to 11:30, एंड GS2 का टाइमिंग अपना रहता है 2:30 to 4:30 PM. These are both 2-hour papers, and in those 2 hours, you're supposed to solve 80 questions here, 100 questions here. Right? So this is your prelims ka pattern. Now let's talk about the syllabus. Now, syllabus में there are multiple subjects over here. Subjects को हम दो parts में divide करेंगे, static and current. Static and current में divide करने का simple सा reason ये है that static subjects are a little more deterministic. What does that mean? That I know what needs to be done for static subjects for like 80-90% of syllabus completion. Current subjects या dynamic subjects इनको बोल लो, इसमें like you may do 1,000 pages, you may read everything, study everything, and yet you may feel कि यार मतलब नहीं हुआ. Why? Because dynamic subjects constantly keep changing. There are new technologies which are coming up. Right, the prime minister is going to a new country. Some new country ka president, prime minister, head of state is visiting India. So therefore, some new information is always coming up. Therefore, dynamic. On the other hand, if I talk about modern history is done. Right, it is the period from 1757 to 1947. हो गया वो, उसमें कुछ change नहीं होने का है. तो therefore, I have a fixed source कि भाई अब ये मेरे को Indian national movement कहाँ से पढ़ना है, and if I do that, I should be fine. Indian national movement, this is the part known as modern history. History of India, this is where you'll get three parts: ancient, medieval, and art and culture. Together, these three are also known as AMAC. Right, ancient, medieval, art and culture. तो history में ये अपने basic parts हो गए. Then you come to geography, Indian and world geography. अब इसमें दो parts रहते हैं. There is physical geography and there is social and economic geography, which is also known as human geography. Right, physical geography is the idea that the river Ganga is flowing from here. Human geography is कि भाई river Ganga के इस वाले part पे हमने dam बना दिया. Right, that is the social and economic aspect. Economic aspect, dam is going to produce electricity, dam is going to give some like employment XYZ. Social aspect, when I build a dam, a lot of area is going to get submerged, and that submerged means a lot of people are going to get displaced. What do we do about it? So then social geography, right? So physical, social, economic geography generally are intertwined, but obviously we study them with a certain distinction also. Now beyond that, this is of India and the world. तो world geography में क्या रहता है? Generally, you get a lot of questions asked on कि okay, this place was in news. Where is this place? Okay, Afghanistan was in news. What are the neighboring countries of Afghanistan? Ukraine, Russia war has been going on for so long. What are the neighboring countries of Ukraine? तो मतलब क्या है? जब भी whenever there is a place in the news, it is your job that you look up कि भाई अच्छा, where is this place? What is going on? Now, next, polity and governance. Now, at this point, there is a very clear distinction that I want to make, that there is a difference between polity and politics. And this is something that, when I first started preparation, I didn't fully know. So, polity in a very basic sense means the structure of government, which is given by the constitution. Right? कि भाई स्ट्रक्चर कैसा है कि ओके, देयर विल बी अ पार्लियामेंट, देयर विल बी अ लोकसभा, देयर विल बी अ राज्यसभा. राइट, बिल विल गो फ्रॉम लोकसभा, गो टू राज्यसभा, एंड देन देन इट बिकम्स लॉ. सो दैट स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, हाउ बिजनेस ऑफ गवर्नमेंट इज टू बी डन, कि भाई सेंटर क्या होगा, स्टेट क्या होगा, गवर्नर कौन होगा, प्रेसिडेंट कौन होगा, कैसे, हु इज अलाउड टू बिकम प्रेसिडेंट, how is president elected, how is governor elected, all of these things are part of the structure. Now, पॉलिटिक्स इज कि भाई इस स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर कि भाई बीजेपी की सरकार है, कांग्रेस की सरकार है, तृणमूल की सरकार है, या भाई अपना कोई भी डीएमके एडीएमके की सरकार है, सीपीआई, एनीथिंग ऑफ दैट सेंस, दैट इज पॉलिटिक्स. दिस इज नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जाम, राइट? यू आर नॉट सपोज, मतलब यू वांट टू टेक अ जनरल इंटरेस्ट इन इट कि भाई क्या चल रहा है. व्हाई? बिकॉज दिस tells you a little bit about Indian society. How are things changing? What are the people, thinking about? What is the country thinking about? So in that sense, you pay attention to it. But for the exam, this is what is important. You need to look at the structure, right? And वो structure में क्या क्या देखना है अब अपने को? Constitution, political system, पंचायती राज, public policy, these sorts of things. Which brings us to the next subject. So these are the four major अपना static subjects. Right. The fourth and final static subject is Indian economy. Indian economy and social development, जिसमें sustainable development, poverty, inclusion, ये सारी चीजें आ जाएंगी. यहाँ पे कुछ बेसिक चीजों के बारे में बात होगी, like for example कि भाई what is inflation, right? कि भाई you might have recently heard that there is a lot of discussion going on that dollar and rupee का exchange rate is about to hit 100, कि भाई 100 rupees per dollar. So then what can the government do to not let that happen? Should the government let that happen? So these are questions you need to understand by understanding the economics behind it, right? So that is what will be over here. Finally, we get environmental ecology, biodiversity and climate change. अब ये becomes a very important part of prelims का syllabus, because for prelims the civil services and forest services, both of these services का preliminary exam is the same. So therefore environment is a very very important subject जो कि हर साल 20 to 22 questions you get. Now environment becomes a hard question also because there is a lot of current affairs का update going on over here. कि भाई recently there was a climate convention in this country, something was decided, so now that is part of your syllabus, you have to study. Recently some species was in news कि भाई अच्छा this species का conservation project has happened, so then that becomes part of your syllabus. कि okay, cheetah has been introduced from this part of the world to now India over here, so which national park has cheetah gone into? So those sorts of things become important over here. उसके बाद जनरल साइंस में क्या है कि भाई अभी एआई पे जैसे बहुत सारी बातें चल रही हैं, क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग पे देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन गोइंग ऑन, so then you have to understand the basics of these concepts. If you understand the basics, generally that is the general science wala component. Finally, after all this, there is current events of national and international importance. This is what is known as international relations, right? It is not just international relations, but it will also be if there was a momentous event, India did something big. Like for example, this year there was a question on microprocessor chip that India had created, right? So India ka semiconductor mission is a big thing that India is investing in, and we made a lot of progress in that semiconductor mission in the last couple of years. So there were a couple of questions on that. So current events of national and international importance. So therefore ये जो चीज है, let me highlight in another color. Current events, environment, general science, ये आते हैं हमारे डायनामिक सब्जेक्ट्स. हिस्ट्री, ज्योग्राफी, पॉलिटी, इकोनॉमी, ये आते हैं हमारे स्टैटिक सब्जेक्ट्स. स्टैटिक व्हाई? Because economy में inflation is not something new. Inflation is something that has been with us so long as we have been measuring things. So if I understand the concept of inflation, now I can just pay attention to, okay, is inflation high or low, and I'll be done. But with environment, there is a constant, update going on कि government has now declared a new national park, some Ramsar site has been declared. तो यहाँ पे current events का importance becomes a lot more important than in any of these four subjects. So that's that. इसके बाद एक बेसिक चीज पे आते हैं कि भाई CSAT का सिलेबस हम देखते हैं. या CSAT के सिलेबस से पहले, this is also something that a lot of people have been asking कि भाई after prelims 2026, अब सिलेबस तो यही है, सिलेबस हैज नॉट चेंज्ड, बट प्रीलिम्स 2026 में क्या किया इन्होंने कि भाई एथिक्स के भी क्वेश्चंस इधर डाल दिए. अब कायदे से देखा जाए तो एथिक्स इज नोवेयर, बट दे आस्क्ड एथिक्स का क्वेश्चंस, तो हाउ इज दैट फेयर? तो दैट वाज अ मिस्टेक आई पर्सनली कंसीडर ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ यूपीएससी. अब ऐसा भी नहीं था कि तो वो एथिक्स का केस स्टडीज वर वेरी हार्ड. इफ यू हैड प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर GS4 जो कि मेंस में आपका आता है, you would have been able to mostly solve those case studies. Even general sense आप लगाते तो you would have been able to solve them. The problem with that is कि भाई it is nowhere in the syllabus and that was unfair on the part of UPSC. Ideally भैया ये या तो क्वेश्चन आपको हटाओ या भी मतलब ये syllabus अपडेट करो. But so long as syllabus is not updated, these questions should not have been there. At the same time, 2026 was a very factual question paper, right? Whenever there is a very factual paper that comes, and there have been 2020 का अगर year देखा जाए तो it was considered as the hardest paper till then. 2023 का paper was considered as the hardest paper till then. Now 2026 का paper is considered as the hardest paper and it is. I'm not saying that it is not hard. I'm simply saying कि भाई हर 2-3-4 साल में यूपीएससी का एक बार दिमाग फिर जाता है and then they're like कि भाई बहुत difficult कर दो एकदम से. But अब होता क्या है? Then 21 and 22, these were relatively easier papers. Similarly 24 and 25, these were relatively easier papers. Relatively easier कि भाई अगर मैं कट ऑफ देखूंगा तो यहां से थोड़ा ज्यादा यहां हो गया था, यहां से थोड़ा ज्यादा यहां हो गया था, यहां कम होगा तो यहां थोड़ा ज्यादा हो जाएगा in the years 27 and 28. Now please don't hold me accountable for this. This is a general sense. क्यों? क्योंकि whenever there is such a difficult paper that is made, UPSC also gets the pushback. But it's not like they're going to conduct the paper again, but they do make sure कि भाई अगले साल इतना difficult और bullshit paper ना बनाए. So therefore that temperance effect does play up. Right? So with that in mind, एक तो ये कि भाई next year का paper should be slightly easier. दूसरी चीज, when you finally look at podcasts of the people who clear this year, क्योंकि there will be people who will give mains regardless of the fact कि भाई कितना difficult paper था, there will be 12,000 people who will be writing mains, there will be 2,500 people who will be giving the interview, सारी चीज होगी. When you ask those people later on कि what did you do differently for prelims, they will say I just did the same things. Why? Because before prelims came, they did not know it was going to be this hard, so they were preparing the same way. It is only after we know that this is so hard कि भाई उन्होंने अब कैसे तैयारी, कुछ नहीं अलग किया है, वही बेसिक चीजें करी हैं. Just they had better exam day पे nerve control, that they were able to stay focused. A lot of people I've heard from this year कि भाई okay, first 20 questions were so hard that I just lost it. कि I lost motivation, I lost focus, and then what do I do? तो then ऐसा नहीं करना है, right? Which brings us to CSAT का syllabus. Now CSAT का syllabus is made up of 3 parts: comprehension, logical reasoning and mathematics. Now कायदे से जो maths है, this should be class 10th level, but again sometimes class 10th से थोड़ा ऊपर level आ जाता है, not a lot, but the paper has started becoming a lot more lengthier in the last couple of years. Now CSAT, since it is a qualifying exam, right, qualifying marks fixed at 33%. Right, so since it is a qualifying exam, it is not कि भाई I want you to spend 3 hours every day practicing CSAT also. We want to practice enough CSAT that we get across this 33% marks. 33 कितना हो जाएगा 200 में से 66.66. For safety we are going 67. If I'm scoring 67 marks, which is doable, it is not like कि भाई बहुत ही ज्यादा मुश्किल है, but at the same time I want to practice enough कि भाई मेरा समय भी बर्बाद ना हो एंड मेरे नंबर भी आ जाएं. तो उसके लिए there's a very simple thing that I would suggest, which is a baseline test. A baseline test is the simple idea that you go and give CSAT 2026 का paper, take 2 hours, give it in the actual exam setting, fill the OMR, bubble भरो, ये सारी चीजें करके देखो, then try and see how much you're scoring. क्योंकि this is a very very simple test. इसमें बस करना क्या है अपने को, that if I am scoring let's say below 30, second कि मैं 30 to 50 की रेंज में हूं, थर्ड मैं 50 to 70 की रेंज में हूं, and then if I'm scoring 70 plus, right, if I'm below 30 you should start now. कि भाई now, even from now, every either 1 hour every day or maybe 4-5 hours on one day of the week, you should start practicing now, because 30 मार्क्स से नीचे अगर आपके आ रहे हैं जब आपने पूरा पेपर दिया है, क्योंकि इसके लिए अब स्पेशल तैयारी करने की बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत नहीं है, बट इफ दिस इज वेयर यू आर, maybe you also need some special preparation for this, right? 30 to 50 marks if you're scoring, so then I would say कि भाई November December में you can start. 50 to 70 marks if you're scoring, so then January में you should definitely start, January of 2027. This is assuming that you're giving 2027 में attempt, right? And if you're scoring 70 plus, you can come back here after March 27. ऑल्दो बीच में एक बार फिर से मैं बोलूंगा कि भाई अभी जो भी रहा कोई बात नहीं, नवंबर दिसंबर में एक बार फिर से बेसलाइन टेस्ट दे देना, तब इंस्टेड ऑफ 26 गो एंड गिव 2025 का सीसैट. तो व्हाई आर वी डूइंग दिस? दिस इज सिंपली अस ट्राइंग टू फिगर आउट where we are, right? This is simply us trying to get from stage 1 to stage 2. अगर स्टेज 2 पे मेरे को पता चलता है कि भैया बहुत ज्यादा स्किल गैप है, आज ही I need to step up. If you're scoring 70 plus, so then you are probably somewhere between 2 and 3, right? If you're scoring 100 plus right now in CSAT, you're already at stage 4. You don't need to worry about CSAT. I hope that gets the point across. Now, coming back to the discussion. तो CSAT का ये हो गया. CSAT के बाद एक बहुत सिंपल सी चीज है, I just want to repeat कि भी स्टैटिक सब्जेक्ट्स हमारे क्या हैं? हिस्ट्री, पॉलिटी, इकोनॉमी, ज्योग्राफी. These are subjects which don't change a lot year on year. So if I do these subjects, they form the base. This is the base of my preparation. उस base के ऊपर there is a constant update that is required of current science and tech, environment, international relations, and then other current affairs के भी national importance के. So these are all things that constantly need to be updated. So when we come to the current affairs wala section, we'll also talk about कि what are the ways in which you can cover current affairs. Now, please keep in mind that static subjects can also have a current focus. Like for example, polity is not changing. Structure of the government of India is not changing, but every couple of years, sometimes there is a constitutional amendment act. So recently you might have heard about कि भाई delimitation का एक act आ रहा था. उसके साथ साथ there was also an act which for women's reservation in parliament. So these were constitutional amendment acts. If they had been passed, structure has changed. So even though polity does not change as much, but does not mean it cannot change. So sometimes current events can also lead to a change in the static subject, right? That brings us to the end of this discussion. Let's talk about mains ka pattern. Now mains mein you have 9 papers. 9 में अपने 2 क्वालिफाइंग हैं, राइट? 2 क्वालिफाइंग में एक हो जाएगा आपका इंग्लिश और एक हो जाएगा आपका इंडियन लैंग्वेज. अब इनमें क्या आता है? व्हाट इज द थिंग दैट इज आस्क्ड ओवर हियर? दिस इज व्हाट इज आस्क्ड ओवर हियर कि भी कॉम्प्रिहेंशन, प्रेसी राइटिंग, यूजेज एंड वोकैबुलरी, शॉर्ट एसेज, and in the Indian language, translation from English and to the Indian language and vice versa. Meaning, if you're taking Hindi, so then there will be a passage which is given in English, you have to translate to Hindi. There is a passage that is given in Hindi, you have to translate to English. What is this? This is just a basic proficiency test. Ki bhai, this person that we are trying to select for civil services exam, is he even able to talk to the people? Right? So you should be able to use at least 2 languages over here. Now, 2 पेपर क्वालिफाइंग हो गए. Rest of the 7 papers are marking. These 7 papers are what we saw at the beginning. इसमें क्या है अपना? Number 1, you have essay. Then you have the 4 GS papers and then 2 optional. Right? तो 4 GS, 1 essay, 2 optional. इनके basis पे you get a score, and on the basis of that score you finally get a rank. So these 7 papers are 250 marks each. Alright, तो मेंस का टोटल आपका रहता है जो जनरली that is 1750 marks. इसके बाद पर्सनालिटी टेस्ट और इंटरव्यू का टोटल अपना रहता है 275 marks. So जो फाइनल मेरिट अपना आता है, it comes out of 2025 marks. तो if you remember the marks of any of the two candidates that I showed you at the beginning, 2025 में से 1100 नंबर आ रहे हैं, right? Roughly about 55%. If you can secure 55% marks in civil services exam, you get AIR 1. Seems easy, right? 55% ही तो लाने हैं. But obviously there is a problem. Problem अब यहां पे क्या आती है कि भाई number 1, तो all of these 7 papers, these are 3 hours. और जनरली मेंस का पैटर्न अगर मैं देखूं तो इट स्टार्ट्स ऑन लेट्स से फ्राइडे, सैटरडे, संडे, देन मंडे टू फ्राइडे छुट्टी है, एंड देन नेक्स्ट सैटरडे एंड संडे 5 days you will have, except for the first day when you have the essay paper. On the first Saturday you will have GS1 and 2, GS3 and 4, your language paper 1, language 2, optional 1, optional 2, right? So you will be writing 2 papers on any given day, and that is physically demanding. So therefore mains is one of the most grueling exams that is out there, because you have to write a lot. And अब ये 250 में से 55% अगर आप लेके आ रहे हो, what does that mean? That out of 10 marks, if you are scoring 5.5 out of 10, you have written an absolute banger of an answer, you will get rank 1. The problem is that you have to do this 20 times in a row, and then after a 2-hour break you have to do it 20 more times, and then tomorrow 20 more times, and like वो वाली problem हो जाती है. You may be able to write 1 or 2 good answers, but to be able to write that many quantity of good answers back to back, that is what makes mains so hard. तो mains के subjects की बात कर लेते हैं. Mains में GS1 में you get 3 subjects: history, geography and Indian society. Now what I'll do is I'll highlight the subjects which are only mains specific, right? Indian society in GS1 is only main specific. History and geography you are also doing for your apna prelims. World and post independence history, these are new elements which are also added in mains apart from modern, ancient and medieval. GS2 mein there is social issues. Social issues we don't focus on as much for prelims. What are social issues? Ki bhai, what is the state of poverty? How is poverty calculated? And like, what is the state of hunger in the country? What is the government doing to eradicate, a lot of the basic common diseases? So that sort of a thing you generally don't get in prelims. So that is primarily given a lot of weightage here. Similarly, international relations, while it is there in prelims, the focus of international relations in mains becomes a lot more in depth. In prelims, you'll be asked very simple questions like, acha, this grouping is there, or this meeting was there. Here you'll be asked like, AUKUS एक grouping है, तो ये grouping क्या कर रही है आजकल? How does this grouping impact India के interests? There is a grouping called I2U2. तो ये grouping क्या कर रही है आजकल? इसका India पे impact क्या है? कि भाई क्या चल रही हैं चीजें? तो this sort of some deeper analysis is required in mains in international relations. GS3 में this special focus on agriculture, this is main specific. Similarly, disaster management and internal security, these are main specific. Rest, Indian economy, environment, science and tech, जो आपने prelims में भी किया था, similar चीजें यहां पे भी पूछी जाएंगी. This entire paper is your main specific, but again, like we discussed, इस साल prelims में भी there were questions asked on ethics का case studies, तो like ideally I would say still main specific. इस साल का was an anomaly, maybe next year they won't do it. Still, you never know. So, case studies, ethical theories, contributions of thinkers and applied ethics. तो ये कुछ basic चीजें हैं जो हमारी mains में आती हैं. Language papers we have seen, mains का syllabus, GS के papers का भी have seen. Essay का paper जो है अपना, essay के paper में ना, you don't get, there's no specific syllabus. Essay के paper में I've also made a 1.5 hour video discussing what exactly is needed to be done in the essay paper, because essay is one of the more important papers. क्योंकि there are people who get 80 marks and there are people who get 140 marks, right? तो essay में ना range बहुत बड़ा है. So like for example, we also saw Anudhi Duri Shetty. He was somebody who secured one of the highest marks in essay, right? 155. आदित्य श्रीवास्तव रैंक 1 बट 117 मार्क्स इन एसए. तो एसए का पेपर जो है यहां पे थोड़ा चैलेंजिंग भी होता है एंड इंटरेस्टिंग भी होता है. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, आई सिक्योर्ड 157 मार्क्स इन द एसए पेपर इन वन ऑफ माय अटेम्प्ट्स. तो इन दैट 1.5 hour लॉन्ग वीडियो एसए वाली जो है, उसमें आई ब्रोकन डाउन एवरीथिंग दैट हेल्प्स यू गेट देयर. Right, so you can check that video out. We will not go into a lot of detail over here because otherwise essay में कोई syllabus नहीं है. There is nothing that is defined कि ये पूछेंगे essay में. They can ask anything. Now, sources. Let's talk about sources. Now, sources के लिए I've already shared a detailed video on the YouTube channel where I talked about strategy for 2027 and like a lot of other videos we've also shared. अब इसमें क्या है कि भाई ये resources का ना एक list यहाँ पे बना के हमने आपको दे दिया है. At the same time, we've given you some extra resources. Like for example, on our Telegram channel, we've shared the CSAT का workbook. इसमें क्या है कि भाई CSAT का जो भी concepts हैं कि भाई time speed distance में अगर कोई formula है, mensuration का कोई formula है या कोई simple blood relations के questions आते हैं तो उनको कैसे approach किया जाए. We've given you the theory and some practice questions. तो ये सारी चीज एक साथ यहाँ पे आपको मिल जाएगी. At the same time, we've also created some helpful tools over here. Whereas Prelims GPT हमने क्या बनाया है. अब ये Prelims GPT क्या है? This is simply a chat GPT का custom GPT, which can help you figure out कि भाई अच्छा Prelims में क्या repeated themes आ रहे हैं कि भाई मेरे को progress अपना track करना है, मैं ये चीजें कर रहा हूँ तो how can I do that? तो this is something that can be helpful over there. Now, beyond this, prelims के लिए resources, mains के लिए resources, and if you are giving an attempt in 28, 29 or any year further, so then we have also given you a list of the most important NCERTs. अब यहाँ पे list of NCERTs है, by class भी दी हुई है and by subject भी दी हुई है. Whenever this has been boldened, this simply means कि भाई this is the old NCERT. Everywhere else, if a new NCERT comes up, you go with the new NCERT. सिर्फ इन एरियाज में ओल्ड एनसीईआरटी की जरूरत है, बाकी सब जगह पे न्यू एनसीईआरटी हमारी चलेगी. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, अभी क्लास 6 to 8 की न्यू एनसीईआरटीज आर कमिंग अप, व्हिच इज व्हाई यू विल सी कि वी हैव ओनली गिवन यू क्लास 9th ऑनवर्ड्स, बिकॉज़ अभी 6 to 8 की जो नई एनसीईआरटीज आएंगी, आई वांट यू टू रेफर टू देम. नाउ दिस इज स्पेसिफिकली फॉर पीपल हु आर गिविंग इन 28, 29 और एनी ईयर फर्दर. राइट, अब एनसीईआरटीज के साथ भी देयर इज अनदर थिंग. व्हाट वी हैव डन is we've created this beginner's guide to UPSC Prep. This is a free course available on our website courses.upscprep.com. यहां पे आप जाओगे तो in this course what you will get कि भाई you will get all the PDFs, वो तो मिल ही जाएंगी, बट उसके साथ साथ कि भाई मेंस रेडी कैसे होना है, सोशियोलॉजी ऑप्शनल, कि भाई प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस को कैसे डील करना है, आर्ट एंड कल्चर का क्या है, पॉलिटी का क्या है, all of these sorts of detailed sessions you will also find over here, and you'll also get some writing activities कि भाई आपको नहीं पता कि भाई writing कैसे करनी है, तो will also help you get you started over there, right? तो it's a free course, you can check this out, beginner's guide to UPSCprep. and NCERTs भी आपको सारी यहीं पे मिल जाएंगी, right? तो sources का this is the main, which brings us to optional. Now optional में first you have to understand that there are 45 plus subjects to choose from, but 90% of people have one of these 4-5 optionals. Anthropology, right? Geography, history, then political science and international relations, sociology, mathematics. ये 6 optional में 90% of the people that are giving mains are finished. उसके बाद there will always be some 10, 15, 20 people who are giving with each and every one of these optionals. There will be, a literature of any one of these languages is also one of the optional choice that you have. Now, every year people think कि भाई optional हटने वाला है. Like I've been hearing this since 2013, 14 when I started preparation कि भाई अब तो optional हटेगा. Why are these rumors there? Because there was a reform and पहले 2 optional हुआ करते थे. Those optionals were reduced to 1 optional. So there was a genuine case of that in 2013-14, but now it has been 10-12 years and every year I hear people who are just starting कि भाई optional हटने वाला है. जब तक नहीं हटता तैयारी कर लो, जब हट जाएगा you will be the first to know, right? So please keep that in mind. Now, optional में, why are these subjects chosen? Right? Geography, history, mathematics, छोड़ दो, political science, sociology, because there is some overlap between these subjects and your mains का syllabus. Right? Geography and history सीधा अपना आ रहा है. Political science and international relations, GS2. Sociology, GS1, Indian society. Anthropology, also somewhere helpful, GS1. Mathematics is that one optional, which is the odd one out over here. Why? Because mathematics is one of the most scoring optionals. Why? Because it's an objective optional. If you are correct, you are correct. The examiner has to give you marks. So there have been cases where people have been scoring, 350 marks, 360 marks in mathematics. That has happened. But if you don't have a background in mathematics, I would highly recommend that you don't choose mathematics because this is complex math. राइट इसको एक बार देख लेना, ऐसे हल्के में मत लेना कि भाई नहीं मतलब करना है इसलिए कर रहे हैं. जस्ट go and review the questions that are asked. If you feel comfortable, only then. And I would recommend, if you don't have a background in mathematics, to not go there. If you are an engineer, probably you can consider if you were good at math in engineering का जो subjects होते हैं. Right. Some people have also started choosing literature कि भाई they will choose Kannada literature, Tamil literature. Right. तो then अब इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या आती है उसके बारे में बात करते हैं. Whenever you're choosing an optional, how do you make that choice? That choice should be based on these three parameters. Three parameters में सबसे important क्या है? Interest in the subject. Why? Because जो optional मुझे करना है, I have to do a honors degree level of understanding in the subject. Honors degree is slightly above the bachelor's degree and slightly below the master's degree. So if I have to do that level of understanding in any subject, and if I'm not interested in that subject, I will, start banging my head against the wall कि भैया मतलब why did I do this to myself? This is connecting back to that core idea that I said in the beginning. It's going to get boring, very boring. And if you then take a subject that you don't like, which is why, mathematics isn't for everybody. If you take a subject which you don't like, it is going to be even harder. Don't make it harder for yourself. Right. दूसरी चीज इंटरेस्ट के साथ साथ क्या रहता है? Resource availability. If you have a background in the subject, let's say that you've studied botany, you've already got the notes, you've already got the resources from your college course. Let's say, for example, I did civil engineering, right? Botany is over here, civil engineering over here. I also have most of the material that will be required for doing civil engineering. Still, if I choose a subject which is not my background, I am a civil engineer, I chose sociology. So then is some coaching available for that subject? Now, I have said this before, I will say this again. You can clear civil services exam without coaching. General studies के लिए बहुत coaching की जरूरत नहीं है. For optional, if you are choosing a subject which is not your background, I would highly recommend that you take coaching. Because sometimes the nuances of a new subject just go अपना सर के ऊपर, पता भी नहीं चलता है. This was something that happened with me when I started sociology classes. It did not make a lot of sense to me. Over time, it made sense. I had taken some coaching by then. Right. Number 3, scoring potential. इन दोनों के नीचे आता है finally scoring potential. Right. तो अब इसके साथ क्या होता है? 1 and 2 के साथ a number of optionals also get crossed out for you. That if you don't have a background in, let's say, management, and you want to take management as an optional, that is a problem because you will not get a lot of coaching for management optional. Why? Because there are so few people taking management optional that there are no classes. Even if there are classes, like you don't know, they're not in your city, they're not offering online, offline, whatever. There will be some complications. तो ये दोनों चीजें चूज करने के बाद कि भाई आई एम इंटरेस्टेड इन द सब्जेक्ट, रिसोर्सेज आर अवेलेबल, देन आई गो टू स्कोरिंग पोटेंशियल. By this point, I've already shortlisted it to 2 to 3 subjects. From those 2 to 3 subjects, I go for scoring potential. Now, you'll ask me, how do I figure out the scoring potential? This is where ChatGPT and Google is your friend, right? Go to Gemini, go to Claude, whoever. Ask them, what were the highest scores in your optional of choice in the last 2 to 3 years? Right? Ask it, what were the average scores that people were getting in this? Ask it to give you that answer by analysis of mark sheets, not by making it up, because AI tools will make it up. You will get some sense of it. Like mathematics, I told you, it's a very high scoring optional. But if you're not interested in it, don't go for it. Right? So this is how you can make the optional ka choice. Now, coming to the interview. Interview is one of the most interesting stages of the exam and one of the most misunderstood stages of the exam. Why? Because of YouTube. YouTube पे आपने इतने mock interviews देख लिए हैं लोगों के, तो like the thing that you have to understand about YouTube mock interviews is that on YouTube those interviews are sensationalized because the institute knows that they are going to put it on YouTube, and you know, if it gets more views, obviously it's going to be good for them. So they will ask those kinds of questions which are leading, misleading at times to get views. In the actual interview, it is a very sober, straightforward discussion. Usually, sometimes it can go off the charts, but 80-90% of the time, it is very focused and straightforward. In such a case, what is actually being tested over here? So the most important thing is not intended to be a test of specialized or general knowledge. The interview is not a test of your knowledge because that knowledge has already been tested in the written part of main exam. What is interview actually looking at? It is looking at whether you are alert. कि भाई एकदम से हाजिर जवाबी वाली जो चीज होती है ना, अगर हाजिर जवाब नहीं हो कोई बात नहीं, बट आपसे काउंटर क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया, you were saying something but somebody asked you a counter question, are you able to respond to it? Yeah, do you freeze कि भाई oh my god, I'm not prepared for this. You should be prepared for these things. Why? Because to be an IAS officer, you will be in a public facing role and their public will ask questions. So then you have to be mentally alert, right? Critical powers of assimilation. What is the meaning of this? That you are given something to read, you have read something a lot, and then have you understood कि भाई level 4 और 5 पे क्या game चल रहा है? Because if you are not thinking on level 4 and 5, probably you are not going to make it to the interview. Level 4 and 5 of knowledge we talked about in the beginning. But if you are doing that well, so that will also be tested in the interview. Then clear and logical exposition. कि भाई what you are thinking is what you are saying. Because a lot of the times there is a big gap between what I'm thinking and what comes out of my mouth. If there is that big gap, you might have heard something that people say कि भाई क्या बोल रहे हो, and then you're like नहीं मैं ये कहना चाहता था. If you say that often कि नहीं जो मैं कहा versus ये मैं कहना चाहता था, that means you need to work on this. So then इन चीजों पे काम आपका हो रहा है in the actual personality test. So it is technically a personality test rather than a knowledge test, right? So think of it as कि when you are giving the PT, this will be the member UPSC, 1 member, 2 member, 3 member, 4 member. These are panel members. This is chair and this is you. तो अब होता क्या है ना इसमें प्रॉब्लम कि भाई everybody is looking at you. So it becomes a very uncomfortable situation. And in such a situation, like no matter who you are, it is quite normal to feel nervous, agitated. The way to reframe this is to simply think कि भाई अच्छा ये चाचा मामा ताऊ फूफा सारे एक साथ आ गए हैं and वो जो सारे घर पे बैठ के sometimes they question you, right? कि अरे you are preparing for UPSC, tell me what this is happening. So think of it as just that कि वही सारे सामने बैठे हैं and just you are having a conversation. Sometimes it lightens the mood. Now, moving on, this is what I was talking about in the beginning कि by mains is where your rank is decided. Because in the last 5 years, mains का cutoff is about 77-40 के आसपास चल रहा है, right? Sometimes 39, 29, 41, 48, 45, roughly. इसके बाद final cutoff, this is what you require in order to get a rank. इसके और इसके बीच में इतना difference है. In 2025, there was only one person, I think rank 63, who secured 225 marks in the interview. So if you are crossing mains just at the cutoff, it is unlikely that you will get a final selection. So therefore, my objective should not be कि भाई just cutoff पार करना है. I should be crossing 800 marks in mains. तो अब ये 800 को क्या करना है, ये 800 कहाँ से आएंगे, एसए में कितना, जीएस में कितना, ऑप्शनल में कहाँ, इसके लिए again there is a big discussion video that I've made recently, how to start mains preparation from zero. So that is very much in-depth detail discussed over there. You can refer to that. Which brings us to some do's and don'ts. We want to talk about some underlying factors for success first. Right. The most important of this is that you need to understand and not memorize. Because if you are memorizing, you will fail in this exam simply because there is just too much to memorize. You cannot expect कि भाई मैं सब कुछ रट के चला जाऊंगा and then whatever I've like read or studied will be asked. Usually will not happen. But if you can understand level 2 of knowledge and apply that knowledge, level 3, 4, 5, ऊपर जाना है, level 1 पे नहीं खेलना है. If you're playing the game on level 1, you're not going to make it. You have to focus. You have to improve your ability, go higher levels of knowledge. Second, simplify and prioritize. Prioritize का क्या मतलब है यहाँ पे? That you will never have enough time to do everything. Something or the other is always there. अब होता क्या है ना कि people think कि I am not ready for this attempt, so therefore I'll skip this and give a attempt next year. You will not be ready next year either. Next year some other problem will have happened कि I was not well, मेरा cousin की शादी आ गई थी, ये हो गया था, वो हो गया था, so I'm not 100% prepared. I should skip and give another attempt. You are wasting youth, not saving attempts. Prioritize का मतलब यहाँ पे simply है there will always be something left. This is not an exam where you will ever be 100% done. You will never be 100% done. You will at best be 90%, 95% done. So then, what am I leaving? क्या चीज मेरे को ज्यादा अच्छे से करनी है? This is what you have to prioritize. I've already given you one simple basis of prioritization in this video itself. So if you were paying attention enough by this point, let me know in the comments कि भी मैंने क्या prioritize करने को आपको बोला था, right? दूसरा is simplify. Simplify means that if you are studying 5 subjects in a day, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6:30, 6 a.m. Then I'm going to study history for 2 hours. Then I'm going to do my breakfast. Then I'm going to study current affairs, newspaper for 1 or 2 hours. Then I'm going to study economy for 2 hours. Then I'm going to study my optional for 3 hours. Then I'm going to study CSAT before I sleep. It's not going to work out. Simplify. दिन में 2 से 3, don't take more than 2 to 3 subjects in a day. If you're taking 5 subjects in a day, you are frustrating yourself because you are not able to focus adequately. You need depth. You need to increase the level of your knowledge. Not कि भाई मैंने बहुत सारी चीजें ऊपर से पढ़ी हैं. तो simplify your preparation journey so that you can follow it more and then you get the results that you want. Finally, get feedback. Civil services exam की journey में it's useful to get feedback from time to time. Now, this feedback doesn't necessarily mean you have to join a coaching. Obviously, you can get feedback from us also. Like mentorship in essential is 3 years, but you can also get feedback from your parents. Like for example, essay paper is one of those papers which is very easy to get feedback for, provided that you have written the essay. You write the essay, you show it to your parents. If they can say, this topic and what you have written makes sense together, I can tell you that you'll score well. But if they say कि यार ये topic and what you have written, I don't know, not connecting, or maybe it is connecting but I am really not sure what you have written, so then you can be sure you will not score well in the essay. So with civil services exam, there are some things in which you can get instant feedback from people around you also. Show it to your friends, show it to your peers, maybe your old teachers. And then if you want specific feedback कि नहीं, अच्छा मैंने आंसर लिख लिया, मेरे को specific चाहिए कि भाई somebody tell me how exactly to improve it. You can also take courses, right? So UPSC Essential is one of those courses. Now, beyond that, the most important part, like we discussed in the beginning, in the game, be boring. Now, be boring also means that you will have to make some sacrifices. What do these sacrifices mean? It's as simple as your friends will be going out to party, they will be traveling, they will be doing 100 different things and you will not be doing them. Why? Because you are studying. You did not get a vacation. Because if you are not boring, if you are in all of the parties, if you are the life of every party, then you are not studying. And therefore, like when prelims comes and then you fail and then you say, oh my God, what happened? You know what happened. You did not do the task that was required. You were not boring. By being boring, people will stop calling you to parties. They will start saying कि भाई यारे ये तो like this person doesn't come only, like let's stop inviting them. This will do a very good thing. What it will do is it will remove the fake friends from your life. The people who are only around you for when it's convenient. The people who really care about you will still be around, no matter how boring you become. And if actually you start working to improve yourself, these are the people that will support you. कि we no, do this. Yes, it's good for you. Do these 4 things, you will generally find success. Which brings us to the don'ts. What are the top causes for failure? Number 1 cause for failure is that people start becoming PDF collectors and not working towards becoming district collectors. What is a PDF collector? I'm sure each and every one of you watching this video at this moment has a folder on your mobile, on your laptop, on your tablet, wherever, which has like a lot of PDFs. Why? Because like, okay, I saw this PDF somewhere, it's a very interesting PDF, right? Twitter पे देखा था, Reddit पे देखा था, Telegram पे देखा था. Telegram पे तो मतलब इतना देखा था कि सारी PDF I've downloaded, I will read them someday. That day is never going to come. Stop collecting PDFs. या फिर even if you're collecting कि भाई I can't like completely stop that impulse, be absolutely sure कि भाई इधर कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, बस ठाके डाल दिया. I'm never going to look at that again. Because when we start collecting PDFs with the intention कि कभी तो मैं पढ़ूंगा, I fall prey to FOMO, which is fear of missing out. So then what will happen is, as the exam draws closer, your friend will come कि अरे ये वाला PDF देखा तुमने, and then you will get stressed कि oh, I had like 500 PDFs in my folder, but I did not have this one. So I don't want you to fall prey to that. Stop being a PDF collector. Start believing in the fact कि भाई आपका जो sources हैं, whatever sources that you have, those are the things that work. Why am I saying that they work? ये जो sources का list मैंने दिया है, this is not just me saying it. This is people from the last 15 years of Civil Services Exam. They have been reading these things only. So if they have been reading these very same things and they have worked for them, they will work for you. Which is where point number 3 comes. Don't read multiple sources. There's a quote from Bruce Lee which goes, I am not afraid of the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once. I am afraid of the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Similarly, in Civil Services Exam, read the same book 5 times, 10 times. This will be so much better than कि I have read 10 different books about polity. This will give you much better output than this. Now, which brings us to point number 2. Point number 2 is shortcuts and hacks. Now, I'm not going to say that shortcuts and hacks don't exist. They do exist. The problem with shortcuts and hacks is that they don't make sense for why they work till you have done the hard part. Once you have done the hard work, then if you use them, it will make sense. So then every year you see these videos which are coming out on, some logical tricks that you can use in order to clear this much prelims, that much prelims, ye prelims mein aisa kar loge, waisa kar loge, aati hai. I'm not saying those tricks don't work. They do work. But you also need the knowledge to make those tricks work. If you start using shortcuts and tricks without the knowledge, you are just, like apne pair pe kulhadi maar rahe ho. Don't do that. They will work, but after you have gained the knowledge. So do the basics first. A lot of big cause of failure is also hard work without direction. Hard work without direction is as simple as you are driving a Ferrari and you're going from Delhi to Kanpur. No matter how fast you drive, you'll never get to Bombay. Why? Because you were moving in a completely different direction. So there are people who work 12 hours and putting in a lot of effort, but they're not getting feedback. If you're not getting feedback, at times it becomes just a lot of wasted effort. It is not enough that you are working hard. You must work hard in the right direction. Only then do you get the output. So this is where feedback helps. Right. Now, let's talk about consistency. Consistency, there are a couple of ideas that I want to share over here. This is to help you reframe how to think about it. I've shared these before. I'm sharing this again. This is a mistake. Target yahan tha. This is my shot. This is a mistake. Why? Because next time I can come here. Next time I can come here. I can come here. I can keep getting closer and closer till eventually I hit the shot. This is a failure when I did not take a shot. Why? because I was waiting for perfect conditions कि भाई मेरा जब सब कुछ हो जाएगा then I will start answer writing. You know, when I've made my notes, then I will start doing that. If you are waiting for things to happen before you take a shot, you will not make it. You have to start taking shots when you are not prepared. Only then will you improve. Start writing answers even from day one. Doesn't matter. You will write bad answers and it's okay. But writing those bad answers will make you understand what is important versus what is not important in a particular topic. What do you keep in your notes? What do you not keep in your notes? So, making mistakes is completely acceptable. Failure is not. In theory, जिंदगी में हमको लगता है कि भाई आज मैंने ये वीडियो देख लिया है एंड नाउ आई एम गोना स्टार्ट माय प्रिपरेशन फ्रॉम टुमारो ऑनवर्ड्स आई एम गोना स्टडी 8 hours in a day and like 1 year में IAS. It's good to think, but practically life is a little bit like that. There are ups, downs, left, right, सब टाइप चीजें होती हैं. What is important is that we are moving in that direction. If this happens, so no matter कि भाई I've had a bad day where I did not even feel like studying. Even on that day, I studied for half an hour, 1 hour. That's it. But I did not give up completely. On good days, I will by myself study for 10 hours, 12 hours. Why? Because there are days like that where I'm just motivated. There are days where I'm like, बिल्कुल ही मतलब बिस्तर से I don't want to get off my bed also. Even on those days, if you can push yourself to study half an hour, you'll probably make it. Which brings us to point number 3 of consistency. There has to be a certain amount of slack. What does this mean? That if I am saying to myself that I have to be consistent and never miss a single day, so once you miss one day, you've already failed. Why? Because the goal was to never miss. On the other hand, if I have some slack, I know that life is a little problematic at times. There can be emergencies. I can get sick. There can be an earthquake. There can be like some other emergency. In such a case, it is possible that sometimes I will miss a day. But my goal is to never miss twice. Then I will be sure that I am back the next day, and this will ensure out of 25, 19 of 25. Out of 25, 5 of 25. This is any day a better result for my consistency than that. Right. So this is what I'll leave you with for this section, which is that it is your responsibility to fulfill your dreams. If you're hoping that somebody else will come behind me and stand with a danda, if I'm not studying, so they will hit me with a danda to force me to study. They will take away my phone from me so that I'm not constantly distracted. No, nobody is going to come and do that for you. Your life, your responsibility. If you're willing to take it, I've given you the tools that are required in order to do the thing that you want. But it is your responsibility and nobody else's. Nobody else is coming to save you. I've given you a big lecture on that nobody else is coming to save you, and that is absolutely true, even with the UPSC Essential course. This course will make life easier. But if you are not working hard over here, if you are not putting in the effort, we'll tell you what to do. We'll tell you कि acha, we'll teach you live classes mein. We'll have mentorship calls, one-to-one mentorship. You'll have access for 3 years. All of these things will make it easier so that you are not going in the wrong direction. But if you are not working hard with that, it's not possible. No matter the course, no matter what faculty, no matter what anything, everything, whatever it is, your hard work is your responsibility. Our responsibility over here is that you are working in the right direction. That's all that we promise in this course. Right. Which brings us to answer writing. So answer writing का एक basic brief we saw with Kanishk Kataria in the beginning. The second most common question that I get is, I don't know how to start answer writing. I want to start answer writing, but I don't know how to get started. So this is my answer to that. Take a piece of paper, take a pencil, take a pen and start writing. It's as simple as that. You don't need structure, you don't need this, that, anything. The first 50 answers that you write are going to be bad answers. get those bad answers out of the way. You will not write a great answer right off the bat. If you were capable of writing a great answer right off the bat, you would have already written them. You will write bad answers. You should not be afraid of writing bad answers. This is coming back to that same idea of consistency. Take the shot, make the mistake. Making the mistake 50 times will allow you to finally hit the mark. And if you don't take the shot, you can keep waiting. Now, when do you start? Start absolutely easy. If you're reading an NCERT, at the end of NCERTs, there are questions given, and start from there. Because that's the best place to be. That question will be based on just that chapter. And जो class 11th 12th की NCERTs होती हैं, उनके जो end पे questions होते हैं, they are like pretty much 80% mains type questions. If you can do those questions, you will get a very good head start. Second, don't write, before you've read anything, because then it will just be very demotivating. कि भाई कुछ ही नहीं आता, तुमको नंबर आ ही नहीं रहे हैं, या मतलब somebody told me what bullshit you have written. So we are generally very protective of our writing, because our ego gets hurt when somebody says that you've written a garbage answer. So that bad answer thing is internally for me. Generally, at least one reading you do of the subject, you start writing. I've done polity, start writing polity answers. Don't wait कि भाई I'll do one reading of all subjects and then write. Okay. Second, get feedback. So over here, like I've said, from parents, friends, peers, they will give you a general first level feedback definitely. Ki bhai, is it making sense? Are you answering the question asked, or have you written something entirely different? This kind of feedback, get started as soon as possible. Right. So like we discussed in the beginning, answer writing is a skill. And like any other skill, it can be learned and improved. Now, note making की बात करते हैं. तो notes, if you are reading for the first time, don't make notes. For the simple reason that when you are reading for the first time, everything will seem important and you will note down the entire book all over again, which is defeating the purpose. When you make notes, the second most important thing that you have to keep in mind is the organization of those notes. Notes should be organized as per the topics of the syllabus, not as per book, not as per month. Don't make notes of Lakshmi Kant. Make notes on the chapter of Parliament or the topic of Parliament. Why? Because Parliament is a specific topic that is given in the syllabus. Parliament, powers, functions, limitations. These are the three things that are mentioned in the syllabus. So if they are mentioned in the syllabus, now these are the things that I will take out from that chapter. I will then look at previous year questions. If there are some things in the previous year questions which were not covered in that chapter, I will now Google it. Right? तो नोट मेकिंग का बेसिक प्रोसेस क्या रहेगा अपना? स्टेप 1, रीड. एक बार पढ़ लिया, ठीक है. स्टेप 2 में जब हम री रीडिंग कर रहे हैं तो आई टेक सिलेबस का टॉपिक, सिलेबस का टॉपिक उठा के उसके हिसाब से यहां से गूगल से सारे कहीं से मैं मटेरियल उठा के आई विल पुट इनटू माय 2 pages. Right, because I don't want कि भाई 500 pages का notes on Parliament. I'm not writing a book. I'm trying to clear an exam. Third step, I will also look at previous year questions. Right, I will look at previous year questions कि भाई मेरा ये जो 2 page का मैंने बनाया, is it able to answer these questions? If not, something needs to change, something needs to be added, something needs to be subtracted. Number 4, अब क्या करना है आपने? Value addition. Value addition में क्या है कि अब let's say that there was some committee का report which said something about Parliament, or let's say some expert like Subhash Kashyap, who was General Secretary of Lok Sabha, he has made some recommendations. So then what do we do from there? So on that basis, in these 2 pages, I have also added some value addition material. ये एक बार मैंने कर लिया, तो then these 2 pages are pretty good to go. I will generally be able to solve 90% of questions with those 2 pages. Now, even when you are making these 2 pages ka notes, don't fill the entire page. If this is what your page looks like, एक यहाँ पे line बना के छोड़ देना. This is where your notes should be. Why? Because there will be some examples, there will be some new knowledge, there will be something updated in your understanding of the topic that you want to update. So there should be some space for it. while you're making notes. Number two, when you're making notes, so then different kinds of things need to be noted for different stages of the exam. Let's say, for example, if I'm talking about current affairs for prelims, I will need a lot of facts, right? कि cheetah has been introduced in this national park. Okay, that is a fact. Mains के लिए क्या है? Mains के लिए I'm much more interested in कि अच्छा, what was the impact of the non-cooperation movement? कि non-cooperation movement हो गया. Fact क्या था? कि non-cooperation movement started on this date. Non-cooperation movement recalled on this date. Non-cooperation movement, these places happened. Mains के लिए I need analysis. कि what was the outcome? What changed in the way that colonial government worked in India because of the non-cooperation movement? What changed in the national movement because of the recall of the non-cooperation movement? ये analysis का note मेरे को करना है if I'm doing mains का notes. So there is a clear difference. Number three, whenever you make some mistakes in tests, particularly let's say prelims का MCQ test में you're making a mistake, note down those mistakes so that you don't repeat the same mistake. As simple as that. यहाँ पे अब इतना डिटेल में टॉपिक के हिसाब से करने की जरूरत नहीं है. This can be just a single page where let's say I've given 10 tests, so I made 10, 15, 20 mistakes in economy. So I've written down 10, 15 points of economy here. This I made a mistake, this I made a mistake, so that next time that I'm giving a test, I don't make the same mistake. Now, you may have the best notes ever. You may have, the ultra clear, absolutely simple, straightforward answer लिखने के लिए जो मतलब एकदम raw material चाहिए, सीधा का सीधा वो नोट होंगे. But if I'm not reading them again, they are useless. And a lot of you, I know that you make a lot of notes, but you never review them. So if you are not reviewing notes, matlab, why are you wasting the effort of making notes in the first place? This is a constant process. You have to constantly keep coming back to your notes, because if this is not happening, your effort is wasted. Which brings us to current affairs. Now, current affairs mein, sabse pehle, there are three ways to cover current affairs. Covering them from the newspaper and making notes on a regular basis is the hardest. Why? Because you have to do it every day, right? If you miss it, तो then फिर like बीच में हमेशा एक feeling आती रहती है कि भाई छूट गया. You can also do it by monthly magazines. So for example, UPSCprep.com brings out the core magazine, and core magazine में we try and keep it as comprehensive as possible, focused on the exam. कि भाई you do the most important current affairs at the same place. Now, if you are doing newspaper by yourself, I would not recommend you do any of these. But since this is hard, so people generally tend to choose these two. Now, compilations क्या हैं? These are things like PT365. कि भी क्या है? End of the year पे एक बड़ा compilation आएगा पिछले एक साल में जो भी कुछ हुआ, all at one place. The problem with this is कि भी it will start coming from January. कभी महीने में 2 आ जाएंगे, कभी नहीं आएंगे, थोड़ा delay हो जाएगा. So then it creates a lot of stress at the last moment. कि भाई I don't want कि भाई मैं वो constant stress में जी रहा हूँ कि भाई कब आएगी magazine, फिर मैं करूँगा, फिर कैसे होगा. Monthly magazines give you a little more flexibility with that. कि भाई I only have to wait 1 month at a time. Here, these are coming out over 3 months, 4 months. Sometimes in April end में भी जाके 400 पेज का update they will come out with. So then stress. It's not like you cannot do it from here. You can. But it is a factor of कि भाई do I need more stress? Or do I need more, कि भाई बाद में ही करना है current affairs तो यहीं से कर लिया. You can do it. Now, wherever you are doing current affairs from, you will need to make notes. If you're not making notes from current affairs, you will not remember it. So, how much current affairs do you need to do? 12 to 18 months before the exam. So, if your prelims is in May of 2027, so from Jan/May of 26. So, पहले May of 26 से कर लो, राइट? कि भाई स्टार्ट राइट नाउ, कि भाई ऐसा टेंशन नहीं लेना कि भाई 6 महीने का करंट अफेयर्स ऑलरेडी मेरे को करना है. स्टार्ट फ्रॉम राइट नाउ. इफ यू कैन कवर करंट अफेयर्स फ्रॉम राइट नाउ टिल March, April नेक्स्ट ईयर, इफ यू हैव टाइम ऑल्सो गो बैक टू January. दैट्स इट. क्योंकि इतने में मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट जो थिंग्स हैं दे आर यूजुअली कवर्ड. नाउ, making notes is essential part of current affairs. If you have just read something once, you will probably not be able to use it in the exam. So therefore, please do ensure that you're making notes. I've made separate videos on how to make notes out of current affairs and newspaper. So then you can check out those. Right. Which brings us to the final discussion topic, which is revision. कि भाई इतना कुछ हमने कर लिया, रिवीजन कब करें, कैसे करें, क्या करें. So one very basic technique of revision is called active recall. Now, what is active recall? Right now, pause the video, think about all of the things that we have covered. I think it's been like a good 1 hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. इतनी देर में बहुत सारी चीजों के बारे में हमने बात कर ली है. So then, if you can think about what are the 10, 15, 20 topics that we have talked about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Write down how many of you remembered कि भाई कितने topics थे. Right, I think we've covered some about 18, 19 topics. I also went and checked कि भाई अच्छा किस topic को गिने ना गिने. तो obviously you can make the argument for we covered 30 topics, but at minimum we have covered 18 topics. How many of those 18 can you remember right at this moment? So this, let me know in the comments below, because what is this telling me is कि भाई even when pointed out, are you willing to make that correction? अब इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि भाई आपको सारे याद होने चाहिए, बट अ वेरी सिंपल थिंग दैट दिस डज इज इट रिमाइंड्स यू राइट एट दैट मोमेंट कि भाई कितनी चीजें मैं भूल गया, राइट. तो दैट्स ऑल दैट इज रिक्वायर्ड कि भाई अब अगर बेसिक सी चीज देखी जाए तो भाई वी स्टार्टेड दिस सेशन, आई टोल्ड यू कि भाई विल टॉक अबाउट एंड गेम एंड ऑल, बट एंड गेम एंड ऑल से पहले हमने बात कर रहा था गेटिंग अ फिश वर्सेस फिशिंग, राइट. देन वी सॉ क्या कनिष्क कटारिया का refills, and we also saw कि भी either thicken your skin or lower your expectations, right. Then we went into the end game. We talked about कि भी what is the end game of civil services. Then we talked about कि भी you know what is the problem with civil services. Then I gave you 4 or 5 concepts, right. Concepts क्या क्या थे वहां पे? You don't need to be a genius, right, but you do need a certain few things. अब जीनियस के बाद फिर हमने बात करी कि भाई और क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स है वहां पे. हाउ डू यू बिल्ड अ स्किल के अलावा भाई स्ट्रेस आएगा कुछ चीजों का. तो देयर आर अ नंबर ऑफ थिंग्स दैट वी टॉक्ड अबाउट. इफ यू हैव दैट मैप इन योर हेड, दिस इज द सेम थिंग दैट आई नीड यू टू डू आफ्टर एवरी चैप्टर व्हेनेवर यू आर रीडिंग अ सब्जेक्ट. इतना सा अगर आप कर लो बस ये दिस 5 मिनट एक्सरसाइज कि भाई रुक के मैंने तभी की तभी रिकॉल कर लिया इस चैप्टर में मैंने क्या क्या चीजें पढ़ी, you will have a much better outcome than 80-90% of the people that are preparing for this exam. But people don't do that. So there are alternative ways of doing this also. Best is obviously right then and there at the end of each chapter 5 minutes. Other is कि भाई ठीक है दिन में I've studied 7-8 hours, end of the day 1 hour I'll take कि भाई अच्छा क्या क्या चीजें मैंने करी थी, I'll just review it. Second is कि भाई अच्छा डेली बेसिस पे मुझे नहीं करना, तो हफ्ते में एक दिन मैंने लेके कि भाई सैटरडे या संडे को I will just review everything that I've done through the week, right. Then 4 or 5 days a month कि भाई 4 weeks I've worked, 2 to 3 days at the end of the month I will just review कि भाई अच्छा what all the things that I've done in the month, what do I improve in the next month. So these are to be built into the process. ये process का part है. This is not something separate that you have to do. This is going to be how your week and you know your days should look like, because otherwise you will forget a lot of what you have read. There is just too much to remember. So you have to keep reminding yourself of कि नहीं ये किया था ऐसा हुआ था. Now, when you're making notes, preferably you should be making them after the second or third reading, and then your notes should act as your base source for revision. You should not be then constantly going back and reading the whole book all over again, because then why did you make the notes in the first place? Which brings us to active recall. Whatever you have read, whatever you have done, try and summarize it in 2 minutes. This is a process which forces the brain to actively, engage with the material that you have just consumed. If you are just consuming and not engaging with the material, it will just slip out of your brain. So therefore, do ensure that you're doing this. Right. Now, revision is the part which will get absolutely horribly boring. So you will have to figure out, you will have to spend some time to figure out how do you make it a little more interesting? How do you change something over here? So that brings us to the end of the discussion. And if you have any further questions, if you feel that there was something that I missed out or did not, explain enough, please do let me know in the comments. At the same time, for those of you that are interested in joining the UPSC Essential course, you can visit courses.upscprep.com. We have a 10% discount that is going for the next couple of days. And all the best on your UPSC journey. That's it.